I was diagnosed with ADHD at 7, and that really kickstarted the pain part of my purpose. I always thought that it was me who was broken. What I really realized is everybody feels that. Everybody has some kind of struggle or pain. That is their key to liberation. The bigger the resistance, the more opportunity there is for growth. We've been trained our whole life to think a certain way, so that's why it's a practice to think a new way. Writing has been the thing that has really saved me. When you let these parts of you speak and then you can read it back, it just opens up a whole new portal. Writing has always been that thing where I can feel seen by myself. You don't have to know yourself first to be authentic. You practice who you are every single day. No one else knows better than you do.
Hannah, welcome to the show. Welcome to the Home to Self podcast. I am so excited to have you here today and to dive into all things spirituality, awakening, self-liberation, subconscious healing. I'm excited to see where this conversation takes us. But before I pass it over to you to introduce yourself and talk a little bit more about the work that you do as a self-liberation coach, I just want to, kind of give some context as to how we landed here, which is, we're both in Sarah Zula's Subconscious Freedom Mastermind. And I know you've done a few rounds. I have as well. And so it's clear to me that we've been on a similar journey of healing from limitations and programming that has kind of suffocated our authentic expression, if you will. And, the spiritual awakening of really figuring out who you are and then embodying that and creating a life that is in alignment with that. And also being so passionate about our own journeys that we now help others through that. And so I know that there's resonance, but we haven't actually dropped in one-on-one. And so I was really excited to bring you on to hear more about your story, selfishly get to know you a little bit better, and also share your magic with the listeners, because these conversations and our own personal stories are always the greatest catalyst that we could, the greatest medicine we could share with others who are on a similar journey. So just wanted to preface that, but thank you for jumping on the show. I'm excited to chat with you today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such a blessing. And even before you invited me on the show, you followed me, and right away, I looked at all your content. And I'm like, wow, yes, I can't wait to get to know you. And then I think the next day you invited me on the podcast, which I honestly was already thinking about it before you contacted me, which was cool. But yeah, do you want me to just jump into introducing myself now? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get into your story after that.
Okay. So my name is Hannah. I am 28 and I am a self-liberation coach, very new into, running my own business. I'm transitioning into making it a full-time gig. So there's a lot of old stories to kind of clean up there. And like you said, I'm in Sarah Zula's mastermind, which is where we met. And I'm kind of in my eat, pray, love era, I say. I am about to go on a 3-month journey, doing work trades and really focusing on myself, which I've wanted to do forever. So it's just a really amazing time in my life, because I felt like I would never get there. It's a little bit about me right now.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. So, I say this all the time, but I feel like everyone that I talk to who is on a similar journey like this, it's because of our own shit that we had to go through and still do, right? We're human. And so many of us are like, wow, this has transformed my life in such a powerful way. I can't not share this with other people, whether we decide to do that as an actual profession or just as a hobby. But I want to hear your story. What was your pain to purpose story, if you will?
I love this question. Okay, I guess I'll start. I'm going to try and not make it too long, but I feel like there's a lot of things that kind of click in there. So bringing it all the way back, I believe it started for all of us at a young age. But definitely for me, I grew up, I was diagnosed with ADHD at 7, and that really kickstarted the pain part of my purpose. I got put on Adderall at a young age as well. And so, I already felt different, but with the Adderall, I didn't really know, when you give a kid stimulants and you don't tell them what it is, it can be very challenging to explain to a young kid why they're not sleeping, why they're not eating, and, you know, why I had to be put in different classes. And so I felt like there was something wrong with me right out the gate. And I also struggled with OCD at a very young age. It was very severe, but I didn't tell anyone. So it was like a hidden secret, which I think made it that much worse, but it was definitely a divine reason for that. So from about 7 to 23, I struggled with OCD. And I was so embarrassed of someone finding out about it that I kind of cured myself in a way. And then before 23, though, I got into drinking, drugs, and, you know, all the things to numb my mind. And at about age 22 was when I kind of hit my like first breaking point, because I was also addicted to Adderall too, which there's no surprise there when I got prescribed it at 7. So I kind of realized, and I do want to preface that, like, I had such great self-awareness. At the time, I thought it was such a curse because I was like so self-aware of everything I was doing, and it gave me even more shame about it. And I now look back at what a gift awareness is, because that's the reason why I made such a big shift at 22. Now, when I made that shift, it kind of was going down still the wrong path. I don't want to say wrong, but still not the path that I'm on today. It led me down the path that I'm on today. But when I hit 22, I became obsessed with working out and, you know, that whole fitness realm. And so I kind of shifted my addictions to, you know, from alcohol and drugs to fitness. And I want to say that did save my life, because yes, it wasn't the best thing to go through being obsessed with something else, but it got me out of drinking and drugs, which I think I needed. And then from like 22 to honestly like a year and a half ago, I developed HA, which is hypothalamic amenorrhea. And so I lost my period for 4 years. Didn't even notice that I had a problem with working out or eating. I thought I was fine. And then that kind of led me. So I got on the spiritual path a little bit before that. But that's when I started to realize my pattern with eating and working out. And so, yeah, I want to say 5 years ago is when I started my spiritual path. 2 years ago is when I really made a shift in my mindset. And a year ago is really when it like went full force. A year and a half ago, I quit drinking. And I think that's been the biggest catalyst in my healing. And I think the ADHD has been throughout my life a big catalyst, because it has made me, I'm very sensitive, and I never really like to admit it. So I think without that sensitivity, I wouldn't be where I'm at today, because you can't really ignore it, which again is a gift. But yeah, that's a little story.
Mm-hmm. I love how, first of all, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah,
And,
of course.
you know, it's like, it's so beautiful when we start to get to a place where we can look back at all the pain that we've been through and all the experiences that we've had, and actually see that, you know, as a gift, and see how that has actually been there for a reason. I feel like when you're in it at first, you're just like, why? Like the victim mentality can be so intense during those times, you know, and to actually start to see that in hindsight is such a blessing. And that's part of why like sharing a story is so helpful for people who might still not be on that other side yet. But I loved, you know, the whole idea of the sensitivity coming online and actually moving away from like being this curse or this burden to being such a gift and such a blessing. And I'd love to hear you talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So I'm trying to think of where I want to start. Okay. So I think when we're younger, especially my home life, no one ever talked about their feelings. No one ever talked about like the deep sadness or, the underlying energies of whatever was going on. And so I felt it all within. And I always thought that it was me who was broken, who like, I was depressed at age 7. Like I thought like, this is just who I am. No one else has this problem but me. And I think what I really realized in this work is everybody feels that. Everybody has that, some kind of struggle or pain that is their like key to liberation. And my sensitivity, even with, I think sometimes we confuse our sensitivity with weakness. And that's definitely where I was for a long time. And also with like the mindset shifts that I have been making, especially with subconscious healing. I mean, that has for sure been the catalyst. But I think the sensitivity, like you can't grow without some kind of resistance. And so the bigger the resistance, the more opportunity there is for growth. And so like every new challenge, I think you get better and better at realizing the gift in it instead of like the curse, you could say. I don't know if that answered your question, but
Yeah, I mean, there's so many reasons, right? Like, and this is why I love the subconscious work too, and just like the mindset work in general, is because there's like there's so many ways to look at any one thing, and the story behind sensitivity being a weakness, like you said, like that is societally, I feel like the consensus. And so, yeah, we, especially in a society where like we hide feelings and emotions because we've associated that with weakness, then that becomes the story, and it just fuels this belief, right? And so we do everything we can to kind of not be that, because we want to be normal, we want to be accepted. But then you start going through it and you start to question that, and you start to see if there's like a different way of looking at it. And sensitivity can actually be such a superpower. And I mean, most of the women that I work with, also, I would identify as being sensitive, because there is that like energetic attunement. There is that sense, like there's that sensitivity to more than what just meets the eye. There's like more layers, right? There's the energy body, and there's like the field that we can kind of sense into, especially as women. And that is such a gift, also for like navigating this world intuitively and being able to really like, yeah, just have more information to work with than just being stuck in kind of the 3D mentality, if that makes sense. So that's kind of what I've associated with it now, like going down this path for myself too, and recognizing sensitivity can be a superpower if we know how to work with it, and we have boundaries as well, and discernment.
100%. And I think when you start to relate to your sensitivity as like a, what's the word I'm looking for? Information, right? It's information that we're picking up on. But when we attach ourselves to the emotion, the story, whatever we're picking up on, that's when we get lost in the sauce, as Nikki and Bella would say. I don't know if you know who they are, but they have a podcast. But yeah, lost in it instead of being the one who can observe it and let it pass through. And I think that's been the biggest thing I've had to learn, is letting it pass through without like trying to find it, grab it, fix it, like try to figure out what I did wrong to deserve this, Because I think another side of it too, of like being sensitive or having emotions, at least for me, it's like, what did I do wrong? What did I deserve to feel this? And once you turn it around to, again, seeing it as a gift, it does take time. It's not like a flip of the switch and you think it's a gift. Like I'm still working on it every day, but the more you do it, I think the more it shows you it's a gift. Sometimes not in the moment, but like in hindsight, it always does.
Yeah, it takes rewriting that and then creating more lived proof for sure afterwards. But it's it's like a tuning fork. Like your body is like this
Mm.
instrument, this tuning fork, and it's like a really sensitive tuning fork that can tune into more subtle energies and information. And so yeah, you have to learn how to use that first, because if not, it can be overwhelming, the amount of information coming in. And especially if it's associated with stories that like you're somehow broken because of how much you're feeling.
Yeah.
But it can be such a beautiful journey to actually like unlock more purpose and more gifts and more attunement to life. And so yeah, I love that we went down that rabbit hole, because like I said, there's a lot of women I think that listen to this podcast that will resonate with that. um and from here, I'd love to dive a little bit deeper into the idea of, or the trap that so many of us can get stuck in, especially at the beginning of this whole path of like wanting to fix ourselves and feeling like we need to
Mm.
fix ourselves. And my journey has been so similar to yours. I mean, different details and circumstances, but also moving from one extreme to the other. And, it can feel it, honestly, like looking back at it, I'm like, because everything happens the way it's supposed to, I see the perfection in how, especially when it comes to body and working out and wanting to take unhealthy habits and take that same control and move it into a healthier
Hmm.
habit that we think is actually really good for us. And it is so much better than the alternative. But I almost feel like it's such an important stepping stone at first, because we can't do it all at once. We can't go from all these unconscious programs to suddenly like seeing the higher perspective. I almost think that there has to be like a stepping stone. And so
Hmm.
there probably is divine perfection to that. But how did you, like, what helped you to start breaking that cycle? And just tell us more about how this all showed up for you, and how you ended up breaking the cycle of just flipping from one extreme to the other.
Yeah. I think it goes, I think it comes to trying to avoid feeling things and trying to avoid, just trying to avoid. I think a lot of, a lot of the, where the addiction stemmed from was avoiding feeling like I was broken or like there was something wrong. And so I think on a deep level, I believed that. And so, obviously that's where the drinking came in. That's where, and then I started to equate my value to my appearance, which again, I think was the thing that I needed to get myself out of drinking. Like, I don't know if I would have got myself out of that trap if I didn't have that story. So it did save me, but it's like that saying, what got you here won't get you there. So
Mhm.
like you're right, it is a stepping stone. And I think it just really showed me too, like how strong thoughts and beliefs can really be. And but it's like they make you believe they're like this big monster under the bed, but all they need is love. I heard this on a podcast. It was like he told his daughter, like his daughter was scared of something under the bed, and he was like, all they really want is like a really big hug. And after that, she was never scared again, right? Because like that's so
Oh.
true with our beliefs, our stories. But I think the first key is awareness. So I think um, that story got me out of the drinking, not in a healthy way, but I think it had to be that way. And then with equating my value with um, my appearance, I believe that I was broken. So like I was like, okay, how can I be of value in this world? I thought it looked okay. I just thought I had gained some weight. So I was like, maybe if I just, this was all subconscious, by the way. It wasn't like I was thinking this, but I was like, if I can just, have the perfect body and like, I know I'm athletic. And so I thought I could make a life out of like my body basically. And so I attached to that. And then, it was always about fixing either something on my body or fixing like my personality. So it was kind of hand in hand with the gym and my personality. Like I didn't hang out with friends. Like I was always trying to find, yeah, it was like that never ending cycle of trying to find what's wrong with me, fix it, and then find a new thing, fix it. And sorry, I don't really remember the question.
Yeah, how did you end up breaking the cycle?
Oh, breaking the cycle. Okay. So really, I think it was surrendering into, I think it was honestly getting into this work. And really, I think writing, to be honest, was one big thing. And meditating and really just getting quiet and listening to what I was even talking to myself about. Because the first step to anything is awareness. And I know it doesn't sound sexy or cool, but like that really is the first thing to do. And so and two, your body will tell you. Like I got to a place with working out and eating that I had hypothalamic amenorrhea, and basically my adrenals were shot, and I like, oh God, it was bad. It like, I did not feel great. It started to become a problem to where like I couldn't ignore it. And so I then was like bedridden because I was so tired because I started eating more and I stopped working out. I went through this whole regimen to get my period back. And that alone time and that solitude with myself and really taking away, well, obviously the drugs and alcohol were kind of gone because I replaced it with working out. But then once I took away that other vice, which was working out and like controlling my food and controlling my body, once I took all that away, like all the safety blankets, then I really got to hear my inner thoughts. Because when you have patterns and habits that are keeping those thoughts at bay, you're not going to hear them. Once you stop, then they all come rushing in, right? Because that's the reason why you had those things in the first place, is because they kept these voices, they kept these feelings at bay. Maybe not even at bay, but like subconscious, to where like you could just like push them to the side. And so when I didn't have all these things to distract me, and when I got awareness of what I was thinking, that was really the big catalyst. And I think alongside awareness comes compassion, because in between the time uh, of having the awareness, I still had that belief that I had to fix myself. So then it wasn't working out in my body. Then it was trying to fix my mindset, like trying to get my obsessive part with my body, like that made me feel like shit. I was trying to fix that or shut that out. And that's not how you heal. And I think it's like so ass backwards in our head, because we think that how we heal is to get rid of, but it's actually to invite in and to bring more of these parts of us into us, instead of saying that they're bad, learning from them and not being scared of them. Because once you resist, I mean, they're going to be there forever. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's honestly like the greatest turning point in someone's healing journey, is that recognition that it's like, it's actually not about getting rid of anything or like fixing, but about inviting in, right? Of like leaning in and understanding and shifting your relationship to these parts. Like that was really such a catalyst for me too. And I have such a similar story, like I said, in terms of just wanting to fix and using that first through my body and this like constant desire. And I was like a health coach at first, and nutrition was like everything to me. And so I was just manipulating my diet and lifestyle constantly in pursuit of like the thing that would finally like set me free, essentially make me feel the way I wanted to feel.
Yeah.
And it ended up really backfiring on me. And then like the more I was like, my logical brain had to get to such a point of like breaking, because on paper I was doing all the things, like, and then some, and my body was just continuously responding poorly. And it just it added to this vicious story that was like, oh, then it's my fault, then I'm broken, there's something wrong with me, because it doesn't add up, right? And yeah, for me, it really took exhausting every external means until I finally like looked internally as like, oh, how do I talk to myself? What am I believing about myself? Where are my actions actually coming from? Like, what is the underlying intention? And it was this constant wanting to, it was a reactivity, right? This like constant desire to fix and solve, which what was such a big game changer for me was recognizing the how basically the more that you are trying to fix something, the more you're just reinforcing the fact that there's a problem.
That right there. I think that when I realized that of like when people would ask you what the problem was and like the parts of you that the stories would like run and then you would get to the bottom of the story and then there would be like nothing there. And it's like it's crazy when you really like start to ask those deeper questions and then you start to see that there it just like dissipates.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that same thing you just said of the very thing you thinking there's a problem is the only problem.
Yes, literally though. And it's still, it's like the mind is so sneaky. And this is, I like every time now too that I'm like stuck in something where I'm like, oh, I feel like this is a problem and I'm like struggling with something. Every time that I slow down and catch myself again, I'm like, oh, it's literally just a problem of perspective. Like our
100% of the
problems are
time.
not circumstances, they're perspective. And that doesn't mean there isn't shit to deal with. Like we're human beings. There's a lot of circumstances we have to deal with, but the suffering is psychological and it's literally just seeing your circumstances through a lens of like, I mean, essentially victimhood, I guess, of this
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't be, or is there something wrong with me, or I don't want this. And then now you're in conflict and you create a much bigger problem than just dealing with the circumstances at hand.
Yeah, I think too, when you're in resistance to what is, you will always suffer. So, like, just the very thing of trying to fix something, you're saying that it's not right. And so you're resisting. So, like, I think at the very core of most things, of most suffering, is that you're resisting where you're at because you're
Mm-hmm.
saying that it's not supposed to be, you're not supposed to be there or it's supposed to be different. And when we really open ourselves up to seeing that it's not all on us, like we're not by ourselves and we don't need to figure out anything, I think that brings a lot of freedom too. And you're very right in when you said it's not about it's not about getting to a place where these feelings and these thoughts don't come in. It's your relationship to them that really does change as well.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like that might not be like the answer people want to hear at first. I know it wasn't what I wanted to hear when I
No.
was in it. You're like, fuck that.
I'm like, just tell
I'm
me what to fix and I'll fucking do it.
exactly. Give me the magic pill. I'm like so over it. But really, I mean, it's not until you actually recognize the feeling of liberation that can happen, even if the
Mm-hmm.
circumstances are still there, but you do change the way you're
Yeah.
relating to it, that then you're like, oh, wait, that is actually true. And that's a good thing because it, for me, it was like, oh, there was this constant when I was like really in my struggles, especially with my body and my health, there is this hopelessness of thinking that I'm
Mm-hmm.
so far from where I want to be. And therefore, I can't feel the feelings that I'm associating with, you know, the transformation until I do all of these things externally, until my body like completely shifts. And that's like, you give away all your power of your internal state of being, of how you actually want to feel, right? If I want to feel confident, free, at peace in my body, and I think that it can only happen when I reach this like level of perfection,
Mm-hmm.
it just created the separation of thinking that that lives in the future creates so much suffering in the now, right? And so it's actually the best thing, the best possible solution is recognizing, or the best realization is that recognition that no, actually, it doesn't actually have to do with anything external, even like changing your body. Like you can actually feel those feelings right now. And it's not
Mm-hmm.
easy, but that is the journey.
Yeah, and I think another thing that kind of broke the cycle for me, which was I looked back on old pictures of me when I like had the body or whatever, and I remember my mindset in the picture, and I remember not being happy. I remember like thinking I still looked fat, And now I look at the old pictures and I'm like, how did I think I was fat in that picture? And that just goes to show that it does not matter what your body looks like, the external, because your mindset follows you. So it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
matter. It's like your mindset is what it is in the now moment, which you can change it at any now moment. But either if I'm in this body that may be a little bit bigger but healthy versus the body that was, perfect. I don't even think it was, but I still had the same mindset. I was still suffering. It doesn't matter. So I think that too really shifted everything for me. That like I had to show myself that like didn't matter if I had the body. I'm so much happier now than I was 2 years ago.
That's such a good point. That's so true. And I think it can be, or at least I'll speak for myself, but I remember also looking back at old pictures of when I felt like my best, especially in moments when I felt like in my worst state. And I feel like it's really easy for the mind to disassociate from how you actually
Mm-hmm.
felt and just look at like the body and be like, oh no, like I just want to go back to that, right? This feeling of wanting to go back to how you
Yeah.
looked and forgetting that you actually weren't even happy. You weren't even free in that moment. That's why you kept pushing and then made it got worse, you know? That's why it was
Yeah.
never enough because you were
Mm-hmm.
still trying to outrun something, which at the end of the day isn't the body, isn't whatever you have deemed as the problem, but it is the own feeling that there is a problem. And that follows you no matter where you go until you actually do the work to liberate yourself from that.
Yeah. And I think too, what we run from is the very feeling we don't want to feel is usually the thing that will also set us free. Like I think sometimes I think the grief too of yeah, I was a little sad to let go of my old life, and to let that grief in was such a game changer too. And to even feel the loneliness, or like the that part of me that's scared that I'm not going to be important or I'm not going to be loved because of the way I look, like letting yourself feel the depth of that grief or that sadness. And it's so crazy because it feels so like ass backwards to the mind that that's how you heal, like is to feel it, right? But it really is. Most of the time, we're running away from the thing we don't want to feel. And so once we feel it, then there's nothing to be scared of.
Hmm.
But again, that
Yeah.
takes time. It's not like I'm still like it's not like I've figured it out. It's just like it's just
Yeah.
I'm gaining awareness. And I don't think that's why it's a practice. I don't think we ever get to a spot. I think this is another thing too, is realizing that there's never a finish line. And that used to really scare me because I was like, oh, I'm going to be dealing with this my whole life. Like, I'm going to be depressed my whole life. I'm going to have all these feelings my whole life. But it's the way we're relating to them. And so once you realize there's no finish line, it does take a lot of pressure off too. And knowing that everyone else is going through maybe not the same things, but similar things in their own way, it makes you feel way less alone.
Yeah. Exactly. There's so many nuggets there, but the just touching on the point of like really shifting your relationship to it, the way that I can explain it from my own journey to like offer some perspective too is like
Mm-hmm.
we do still experience moments and like yes, it's a forever journey. We're by no means like fully there. There's no there to get to. But what I've noticed starts to change as your relationship to it starts to change is like, okay, there's moments of like, let's say anxiety that comes up or fear or self doubt, right? Like experiences I've had my whole life. But before I was so afraid of them, I was either like consumed by them and like identified
Mm-hmm.
with them, or I was constantly trying to prove them wrong. And so they held so much like power over me. You feel so controlled by it when you're so afraid of that, right? And you do everything to push it away. And again, what you resist persists, so it like intensifies the gravity of it, the control that it has over you, and it perpetuates. So it becomes these like states of beings that you like live in for like days at a time, and it's really hard to break out of, and you feel very heavy and stuck and whatnot. And now it's like, okay, recognizing your humanity, and as part of that, like we're going to have moments of fear, anxiety, doubt, all these things. Like that is normal. Again, you're not, the goal is not to get rid of that or else you wouldn't be human. But more
Mm-hmm.
so now in moments when like I have anxiety come up or fear or doubt, I now, because I can coach myself through this and I've done the work, it's like I might get lost in the sauce for a little bit, but then I catch myself quicker, and that gap keeps getting shorter. And the moment I catch myself, I'm like, okay, I know what to do here. I know what's happening. I'm not going to fall into the victimhood story, but something here is wanting my presence and to be felt. And I can feel this emotion. I can maybe journal. I can lean on practices to help me break this state and maybe even extract the lesson that's wanting to come through. And then on the other side of that, you feel the freedom again, and you may even gain some wisdom that will help unlock your next level. And so that is the continual, like, return to yourself, come back, lean in, do the work, like, don't run away, don't distract. And that process gets smoother as you go, and it actually becomes empowering to recognize, oh, I don't have to be scared when these experiences land. It's just me learning how to, like, meet myself over and over again and finding the freedom that exists quicker and quicker on the other side the moment that you have the courage to do that.
Yeah, I agree for sure. Like it's getting, it's like you get quicker, like you said, at getting to the freedom, right? Like before it might have been like months or even years. Now it's like maybe a week, maybe 3 days, maybe a couple hours. And I don't think it ever comes like where it's not there. I think sometimes you can get to like where it's 5 minutes and you find freedom. But yeah, we've been trained our whole life to think a certain way. And so that's why it's a practice to think a new way. And yeah, writing has been like the thing that has really saved me, because I think when you let these parts of you speak and then you can read it back, it just opens up a whole new portal.
Yeah, tell us more about that. I would love to hear more about how writing has been beneficial for you.
Yes. So I've always liked writing, but I kind of, at a young age, I thought I was stupid. So anything that had to do with school, like I associated writing with school, and I was like, I'm not good at that. I'm not going to do it. And so, but the funny thing is, when I was in school, like English was my, like, I always excelled at it. Um, but anyway, I got into writing. By the way, I don't know what it is. I don't like journaling. I like typing. And yeah, so like why I say that is because some people, they're very resistant to journaling. And I think just trying different ways of how you like to write, because if someone had told me I only had to journal, I wouldn't be where I'm at today of like getting to the other side of freedom, because typing for me is so much, I don't know why. I think because I don't like my handwriting or something. I don't know.
Well, we
But yeah,
also
so
grew up typing, because that's a thing for me too. I like journaling
yeah,
too, but there's something about typing that I'm like,
yeah,
our generation, like, we grew up typing, like AOL and
that's
all
true.
that.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't even think about that.
I don't know. At least that's what I
Yeah.
was associated with. But anyway,
Wow.
continue.
Okay. I love that. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. So writing, where do I want to start? So basically, I started to write a book because there was this part of me that gaslit like any struggle I had. That was another big thing, hurdle to get over, is like I didn't want to, I stopped myself from feeling certain emotions because I thought I wasn't worthy of feeling them. Like my life wasn't that bad, so I can't, who am I to feel this? Who am I to whatever? And that goes back of like my childhood of, wasn't safe to feel my emotions. So when I started writing, I was able to tell my story almost back to myself and see it from a new perspective. Because also, I think, I don't know if this is everyone, but just from an ADHD brain perspective, like there's so many thoughts coming from each way that it's hard for me to like understand what's going on. So when I type, I for some reason lock in and I can just pick a certain like emotion or a time period and write, and I find more things out about myself that way than I ever have. And so, and it did help me realize too that there was a big part of me that was gaslighting a lot of my childhood. And I actually didn't tell anyone I had OCD, like physically tell someone, until I was 26, and I'm 28. So this was 2 years ago. and my family still doesn't really know about it, but I feel this sense of ease because I have told my laptop, like my laptop can seize me. Like some people, if they can only meet you to the depth they've met themselves. And I've come to terms with that, especially with people in my life that, and I'm not saying there's no judgment, but some people, they can't meet you where you're at. And that can feel very lonely, especially when you're on this path, because sometimes it's a lonely road. I'm sure you know that, and you lose some people along the way. And so, and writing has always been that thing where I can feel seen by myself. You know what I mean? So, and I actually just started a Substack. I used to just write just on my laptop, but I started to release them, and it's honestly, I don't care if anyone reads it, but just the thought that I'm like putting stuff out there and learning my voice, because I think a lot of times our voice gets lost in trying to say the right thing and trying to be right. I for a long time, like, I was really scared because I didn't know who I was. And so I think typing or writing has really helped me find my voice. And even if that voice changes, like, it gives me more of a sense of self in the best way possible.
That's a really cool way of putting it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a really big part of the spiritual awakening process, especially at the beginning. Because now that I think about it, like when I feel like my spiritual awakening began in, or I know it did, it began in late 2019, I think. And then through COVID, it was like
Yeah.
in that isolation portal. I had my partner, but it was just like, yeah, the process that happens where you kind of, go in a different direction than a lot of the people that you used to be close with. And there's just a natural space that starts happening between that, or between you and them. But that time alone can be such a beautiful journey to actually get to know you and recognize, like,
Mm-hmm.
who am I really? If I wasn't all of these things that I thought I was, these identities that I created before I knew better, at first it's like, well, then who am I, right? And then that
Mm-hmm.
starts the whole journey of discovering who you really are on an authentic level, and healing from everything that was getting in the way of that. But yeah, I filled like 6 journals those like first 2 or 3 years, I remember, just, and it was a beautiful time of exploration. But I love that you mentioned that, the writing. And I'm curious to know if you have any process, or like how you do it, because I can almost hear, my
Mm-hmm.
audience being like having that question of just like, well, what do
Yeah.
I write? How do I start?
Yeah. I love this question, because this, like, me a couple years ago would have been like taking notes on like step 1, step 2.
Yeah.
I here's what I'll say is you can try everyone's approach, but you will kind of make it your own. And I think that's what I've done. I I will get like an inspiration to write about something. Like for my book, for example, like I don't know, I literally just started typing. And I know that sounds really annoying to say, because we want to do it right. And I was there. I wanted to do it the right way. But I think just sitting down and writing, even if you start, like, pick an hour a day and something comes up that day, like you were triggered, write about it. Why? Where did that come from? Or even just retelling a story or a memory, like a hard memory sometimes, like, growing up. I even, actually I do have a process. I just remembered. So, wow, it's amazing when you like ask questions and like the insight that comes through, because I didn't even think about this. So the reason why I started writing was because I started working with a mentor, and she's actually a very good friend of mine. I'm doing a retreat with her soon. And she had this practice where she wanted me to write out, like, every year of my life, what I remember from that time.
Mm.
And so I just started writing. I went back to like the earliest memory of like 5, 6, 7. And this is actually where I started to, I think, really come into terms with some of the rough things in my childhood that I didn't want to, or I felt that I couldn't admit that it was hard because like on the external, like, yeah, everything looked okay, but like internally it wasn't. So I started writing just about each year of my life, and it kind of went all over the place because I don't remember exactly like the years, but I started writing from like 7, 8, 9, 10, and just from what I remember, and it just started flowing from there. I wrote like 60 pages, and then it started my book that I wanted to write. And I stopped writing my book again because I think I'm going to switch gears again, but this is probably going to be a couple year book, but it's okay. So yeah, I think that is a really good practice if you're someone that kind of feels disconnected from the past versions of yourself. And I know it sounds crazy, but just giving the younger version of yourself a voice, because all they want is to be seen. And I think I freed a lot of the younger versions of myself through my writing. And again, people might never see those writings, but the feeling of that little girl being heard, like I can't explain the changes that it's made in my life, and just help me realize how much I love writing and how much you can alchemize the emotions in your writing. And it might not be writing for you. Um, it might be speaking. I mean, I love podcasting too. I've realized a lot about myself on my podcast. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's what I'd say to start.
Yeah, I love that prompt. That's powerful to go back. And I mean, you said it beautifully, like giving these parts a voice and letting them be seen is really sometimes the only medicine they need. And it's such a testament to, you know, the whole, like the name of this podcast and this whole journey of like coming home to self. I really think it's just like this constant reminder that like the very things that you needed back then and still need today are things that you actually get to give to yourself first. And that is so much of the healing process, right? Is like that little part of us just wanted someone to see us, to love us, to validate us, to make us feel safe. And that, you know, we need that when we're younger, and we still need it today, but it's like a void within when you think that you don't have the power to give yourself all of those things, that we then desperately try to search it, like look for it externally. And that's the chase, right? Of like fixing and trying to get something out there through manipulating yourself or the world. And writing to me also is like one of my favorite things in the world. Is like, and there's resistance sometimes that I want to talk to of, you know, I think that the parts of us that are like, I want to do it right, or I don't know what to say or whatnot. Like the resistance is not an indicator that you're not capable or you shouldn't, but it's something to like, okay, then write about the resistance. Like, why are you feeling resistance? What are you feeling? What's coming up? Right. And it's for me, every time it's like, if I just meet the resistance and I keep going and push past that, that's when something unlocks.
Every time. And I will say, I used to be someone that looked at people that were great writers or just like great creatives. And I'd be like, they probably never get this fucking annoying voice that says you can't do it. And then the more I dig in, that's why I love podcasts and stories, because every creative or every person that seems like they're at the top of their game says the same exact thing, this resistance they feel before any creative act, right? Like I was listening to this guy, I forget his name, but his poetry is like unreal. And I was like, this guy for sure doesn't feel this resistance. And he was like, every single time I sit down to write, I feel that resistance. And just to know that the resistance is not the thing telling you to stop will change your life forever. I promise. Like, I think we're scared of the resistance because we think that, like you said, it means we can't do it. We're not capable. And the more you meet that resistance, the more you train yourself that the resistance actually is actually like a wink from the universe saying like, here we go. This is going to be good. And I think another thing that helps me too is, and this is still sorry, can I swear on here?
Yeah.
Okay. It just comes out sometimes. This is still a practice for me, is writing, trying to get to a place, and it's not perfect every time, but trying to get to a place of, I don't need the outcome to be X, Y, and Z, right? Just writing to write, and not for an objective, like reason, like you said, to try to be perfect, right? So I think a big thing, like before you put your writings out there, which you can do it either way, but I think it helped me to write without putting anything anywhere because there was no need for it to be a certain way. And so getting in the practice of just writing to see what comes through and writing for the fun of it, even though in the beginning it might not feel so fun because you're resisting the resistance, but I promise you it starts to get fun and it starts to get really juicy and you start to like the resistance. And I'm not gonna lie, some days I don't like it, but I like the resistance more and more the more I do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's almost like when we give into the resistance, we are, or to those voices that
Mm-hmm.
come up, that cause us to resist, it's essentially like giving into the story that the continuous stories that live underneath that say that you're not capable, that you're not worthy, that you're not good enough, all those subconscious limitations that live at the root, right? And so that's where we actually perpetuate it, is when we keep avoiding resistance. And that's like in any area of your life, when there's something that you actually feel called to do or that feels exciting, and you keep avoiding it and keep
Mm-hmm.
resisting, it's like we are actually just perpetuating the very same story. And so I think that as part of the liberation process, it is like proving it wrong. And
Mm-hmm.
it's the only way through is through. It's like, okay. And again, if you change your relationship with the resistance, like this whole conversation has been, it's easier to do that.
Yeah, I love that. Have you seen Finding Nemo where like um there's like the trench and then like the guy was like you have to go through it, but
Yeah.
through it looks like really scary and Nemo's like not Nemo. What's the dad's name? Marlin is like, "Oh, look, let's just go up there. It's going to be so much easier." And it ends up being so much worse. Like that's how it is. It's like it looks scary at the enter and like when you're about to enter it looks like oh, this looks so bad. But actually, once you go through it, it's like, oh, I'm fine. I'm good. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like that's like the continual journey of being human, and you know, rewiring also of all
Yeah.
the thoughts.
And I think conversations like this of showing people that everyone has this, like, I think we're getting out of the era of trying to pretend like we're perfect. You know what I mean? Like, I'm such a proponent of like saying the shit we're in. Like, we're all doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like when we put people on pedestals and think that that's where we need to get to, like they don't have, just like I've done it a million times, like they don't have resistance, they don't have the negative thoughts. It's like, no, we're all human. And once we realize that we're all going through the same thing and there's nothing to be shameful of it and we talk about it, like it just breaks it away right there.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. That is, and that is like the most liberating way to live too, because that is authenticity. And I think this is a beautiful kind of segue into
Yes.
like what I really believe at the end of the day, that authenticity is the goal. I used to think it was like perfection or reaching some sort of success or healing or whatnot. And at the end of the day, I really believe now that it is about authenticity, which is just like realness. Like, what is true for you? I think it's Peter Crone that has a quote of saying, I think he says something like, success is having nothing to prove and nothing to hide,
Mm.
which is just freedom, right? And it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
matter where you're at when there isn't shame around it, and you can just own who you are, and still take responsibility for like the parts that you want to like keep growing into, but that dissolving into just like beingness and like that wholeness and integration of all the parts, that I think is the goal. And so yeah, I would love to hear a little bit about like, what does authenticity mean to you?
Oh, I love this question so much. Okay. So for a long time, I thought you had to know who you were to be authentic. This
Mm.
like broke my mind. Okay, so I've I and this goes back to like I didn't want to do anything wrong. I thought I was wrong, so I wanted to do things perfect to kind of like balance the belief of like there's something wrong with me, right? And so I thought this was all under the surface, but I thought that I could do me wrong. Like I wanted to figure out who I was so I could be the right me. I was just like so crazy to like say it out loud, but like that's what I believed, that I had to like figure out who I was. And if I didn't know who I was, then I couldn't be authentic. But like that is not correct at all. You practice being you. You don't, it's not like, and so I think we really got to be specific when we talk about authenticity, because a lot of people I listen to, and no shame on them, but a lot of people I listened to in the beginning of my journey would talk about authenticity, like the fluffiness of here. And never, it always made me feel like I had to know who I was, and like that there was a place to get to where you 100% knew who you were. And that is not true. You practice who you are every single day. Like every single day, you're getting to know yourself more and more. And it's, you don't have to know yourself first to be authentic. I think that's the biggest thing I want to say. So it's like, again, it's not an end point to get to. It's a thing that you're practicing every day. Like every day that you say the thing that you're afraid to say, that's authenticity. Every time you do the thing that you would usually not because you don't want people to talk shit about you and you do it, that's authenticity. Every time you try something new because you're excited and like you don't know where it's going to lead you, and you like, and all of that is authenticity. And so I really don't think it's an endpoint. And I think it's really detrimental for someone to think that there is an endpoint, because I know for me, like I got into astrology, human design, which I love them so much. Like I actually got certified in human design, but I wanted something to tell me who I was. Like I was using human design to tell me who I was, and I would like study it and like try to like figure out who I was. And it just, so I think that can also like, that's also like a, um, something to have awareness on when you're using it to tell you who you are, because that's not the point of them. Um, but yeah, that's where I stand at the moment.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love this conversation. I'm so glad you just explained it that way, because I think I felt that, but I never really put words to it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for so long, I had this like, I was jealous of people, especially women, who I perceived as having a strong sense of self, like a strong
Mm-hmm.
identity, and who just like were, I don't know. I felt like they, you know, like the way they dressed, the way they spoke, like their style, it was just like very them. Um, and I didn't have that, and I felt like I had to find that. And so a lot of my like self-discovery journey was like trying to figure that out. And I would get frustrated because I could never pinpoint just one. And what I realized is like, I mean, the feminine in general is like always changing, you know, with our cycles too. It like just so depends on our mood and our flavor and whatnot. And I think we're all a little bit different in that one way too. But
Yeah.
it was actually the embracing of like, I am all of it, and it like it changes all the time, but like that's not what determines who I am. And like the authenticity piece really, I think I heard it explained once as honesty, as authenticity just being honesty,
Mm.
which helped me understand. And again, it's like these subtle coping mechanisms of like, well, if I just figure out who I am, then I can be authentic. It's like, well, what does
Mm-hmm.
that protect you from? Right? Because
Yeah.
it's like the discomfort of saying, actually, in this moment, here's what I do know, but here's what I don't know. And like, that's authentic. It's like, right now I'm on this discovery journey, and like, I don't really know who I am, but like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
figuring it out every day. Right. Or like the contradiction of like, there's so many pieces. And I think at the end of the day, authenticity is just like, can you just be honest and comfortable and real about where you're at right now, knowing that that is constantly changing.
Yeah. And I think you're right about trying to protect, like, I think there's like some stigma about like, oh, you're not being authentic. Like, you're a bad person. Like, you're not real.
Mm-hmm.
You're not authentic. You know, it's like, and it's so under the surface, but like you feel that like judgment of like not being authentic. And I think the very striving for the authentic is what is also like the mind trying to, is
Mm-hmm.
also not And I think you figure out those, you can only figure out who you are when you practice. Like, you can't figure out who you are in reading a book or understanding your human design. Like, you have to like walk the walk and figure out as you go. And sometimes you may realize like you do something, you're like, wow, that was not me. And there's no judgment for it, but you wouldn't have known that until you tried it and you did it. Like, that's why I named my podcast Fluidity. I always change my personality. I was always so judgmental of that. Not my personality, but like I I'm always evolving. I'm always changing. Like, I always had a million jobs. Um, I'm always like, trying new things. And I would always look at around at other people and they would be doing the same thing. And I'm like, am I the one who's crazy? Like, how come I can't just be like content at where I am? And so that also put me in a spiral. But when we let go of needing a job to tell us who we are, a boyfriend or like a relationship, friends, when we let go of needing consistency in those areas, we can really let ourselves play with life. And that's not to say that we're running away from things, because I've definitely experienced that too, where I'm running away from something. But at my core, like, I love to try new things. And there is one thing about my human design that I will own, which is like novelty and like trying and experimenting. Like, it's very big in my chart. And so I think that's where human design can help you, is like own some of the personality traits that you have deemed as bad.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So like, that's the right way, not the right way, but like the more, um, what's the word I'm looking for? The, the most helpful way to use human design is to like let it help you embrace these certain parts that like I thought was me being like a flake and
Yeah.
like I didn't have an identity because I was always changing. But like the core essence, once you also like, I love the name of your podcast, Home to Self, because like once you have that, like the essence of you never changes, but like everything around it does. Like when you can let everything on the external kind of like come in and out and like not grasping, but like the core essence of you, which is the self, then it's like magic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And it's the remembrance that like who you are is not, it's not the body, it's not the job, it's not even the personality, it's not the beliefs, it's not the thoughts, it's not none of that. It's this like it, on a soul level, right? It's something that can't actually be changed. Your worth can't ever change. Nothing you do will change that. Like, that is the beauty of it. That is the reminder of like reconnecting to like that's who you are. And then the embracing of the human part and seeing it as something beautiful. Like, this has been such an evolution for me too, because I think oftentimes we go on the spiritual journey and we kind of just like dismiss the human part, and we're like, oh no, we're all soul and spirit and like da da da, and like the human,
Yeah.
we actually like make the human bad in some ways, like the
Mm-hmm.
ego, like kill the ego. And it's like, no, like the beauty, I think, and the liberation comes in the remembrance that we are in, like, as long as we're in these human bodies, it's duality that we're experiencing. And there's beauty in that, like, because of these bodies and because of our unique personalities and the things we like, and our human design and all these things that make us unique, we get to play and we get to explore and we get to experience life through this body. And so
Mm-hmm.
how fun to be able to constantly change and explore and try new things and wear new outfits. And like, what if that gets to just be part of the game of being human, and this playground that's both you and like this earth that we get to dance around on, and letting that be just a fun way to like animate the soul that you are.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and again, like, I think when we're attaching to need a sense of self, like something to grip onto, that's that's the that's the ego that wants safety, right? And there's no shame in that, but it takes awareness, and once you have awareness of that, then you can kind of, and I think there's a reason why there is a point in our journey where, because you've gotten stuck there, right? Where you like wanted to know who you were. And I think that's like, I think that's very universal. I think a lot of people that I've talked to has had that experience. And um, so it doesn't mean that anything's wrong and that you don't have a self. Like, it's, I think it's such a pivotal part in our like spiritual journey is figuring out that like we don't need to be attached to having a self. You know what I mean? Like, yes, we have different ways we can experience our personality, but it's not like end all be all.
Mm-hmm.
This is how I have to be.
Yeah. There's no have tos. You literally get to make it all up. We're making it all up anyway. That's just always what I come back to. I'm like, it's all made up.
Right? It's crazy to think about. Like even like creativity, like creating the way you spend your day or like the way you do whatever, like that's creating. And I think the school system for sure is a big thing that we learn as a kid that we're supposed to be put in boxes, you know? And the more that we do this work, we can see like how much we can create whatever we want and we don't have to follow rules. Yeah, I don't know why I just went off that tangent, but like school, I don't know, school was not my thing. Not my thing at all.
Yeah. The school system is just like, it's an indoctrination is really what it is, right? If like, okay, this is going to be the last tangent before we close things out, but I kind of want to go here. So I think free will is to be able to like impart what that means to me is like the freedom to choose your own perspectives. Mm-hmm. Which therefore creates your experience and the reality that you create more of. And I feel like the schooling system that we currently have in the Western world is very much like an indoctrination of mind, of like teaching you how to think and how to look at life in a way that is very fear-based and limited in many ways and makes you kind of creates you to be part of the systems in place, like the Matrix. And so I feel like so much of the awakening journey and the liberation journey is starting to question everything. And that's why it can feel so scary and overwhelming at first because, well, if I'm not my beliefs and everything that I've ever been told, then what the fuck am I, right? And then that starts the whole journey. And it's first very like disorienting, but then you find the liberation of recognizing it's like, to me, I'm just like, it's whatever you want to make it mean. And like so many of these conversations is literally just us offering a different perspective. But the cool thing is like you have free will to choose whatever you want to believe.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think even like like your perspective is creative, right? Like because if you're making it up, you can create your mindset or your perspective of how like the world that you want to live in. And I think it's just knowing that you have the power to do that and knowing that you have a choice. And even like the free will conversation, like if we have free will, if we don't, like I was listening to a podcast and it blew my mind actually. They were like, because I mean, I'm sure your audience is familiar with like, we are all droplets of the divine, right? Just like every wave of the ocean or every wave in the ocean is part of the ocean. And so if we're all at our essence, this droplet of the divine, there is no free will because our free will is the divine free will. You know what I mean? Like it kind of takes away that like we would go a whole nother hour if we had to talk about that. But I think that's just like a cool thing to think about. Like it's not all on us. Like there's something there is like we're all part of this bigger organization that's just like guiding us and we're with it. It's just it takes away a lot of the the stress of I have to figure out this world. Like we're not meant to figure it all out. We're not meant to figure it all out. And I think that has bring me a lot of peace too, because my logical brain like wants to know everything about what's going on, and you're not going to, and you're not meant to. And so it's like, we've literally gotten this opportunity to live life without needing to figure it out. Like they're just like, hey, go have fun, you know? And I think if I would have heard someone say this, I have heard someone say this like years ago. And I used to get so upset by that because I was in that mode of like, no, what do you mean? Like, I have to figure it out. Like, how are you supposed to say, like, we're part of this bigger plan? And now I feel more of it at ease with it because I trust it, right? If you don't trust it, that's when it starts to get scary because you're like, yeah, I don't know if that makes sense, but
Yeah. No, and honestly, that just made me think that I kind of believe, because I never really knew, I never had a hard stance on like, do we have free will or not?
yeah.
Um, but I just kind of had this thought of like, honestly, I think it's both. Like, I think it's both in the sense of like we are in this dual experience where
Mm-hmm.
like, um, where yeah, I mean, it's like you get to choose your perspectives and such when you're actually aware, because you can't be held accountable
Awareness
for
is the
that,
first key.
which
Yeah.
yeah, which like if you're oblivious to something, you don't actually have choice in that. But once you do, you have the power of choice, and it's like there is something greater at play here. Like there just is. The way that, like, if you zoom out or zoom in, either way, like micro or macro, there's an intelligence that is so beyond our comprehension at play that has been here way before humans have, and that just keeps everything going in such a divine perfection that allows us to to be, that allows life to happen in the perfect fashion that it does. And so that intelligence to me is like that's at play, within us and around us, and our logical minds are so tiny that they can't even
Mm-hmm.
comprehend that. And so it's like it's not all up to us. And when you look back, it's only in hindsight that you recognize the divine orchestration of your life too, even in the moments that you were like, this literally makes no sense. This is just to ruin my life. But then you recognize, oh, there was sense in it. And so that's where it's like, yeah, for me too, to let go of like it's all up to me and the pressure that adds, and
Mm-hmm.
just surrender and soften into like yeah, I get the freedom of making some choices, but and like following my heart, but like I don't have to do it all by myself, and it's not all up to me.
Yeah. And I think while you were talking, it made me realize like when the the practice and the practice that we get to practice every day is, of course, when life is going for us and we're seeing like all the synchronicities and we're like, yes, life's got me, woo, like I'm free. And then when shit hits the fan, those are the moments that is the test. And those are the
Mm-hmm.
moments where, can we truly believe that this is happening for me? I think like once you even can look at, and in the moment, and I'm not there yet, like when in the moment something hits the fan and you're like, but it's like in the moment, can you remember that life is happening for me? That is true freedom, like good or bad, like life's happening for me. And so I think a lot of us got it down with the good stuff happening. It's when the things we deem as this is the end all be all, like Sarah Zula talks about, like this is the end all be all, everything's ruined. It's in those moments where we really get to test our surrender. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's a whole spiral, but sometimes when you can see yourself handle a situation so much differently than even a week ago or like a year ago, that is fun when you can start to see those shifts.
Yeah, that's progress. That is progress. And I think a beautiful way to start wrapping this up is like, I love what you just said, because it reminds me of the saying in a Course in Miracles that says a miracle is a shift in perspective, right? And so the
Mm.
moment, like, that is asking a better question when you're in the thick of it and being like, how is this happening for me? Now your mind is literally going to focus on finding evidence to solve that, to find evidence for that belief, for that question. And it's so easy to get stuck in the mentality, especially when shit's going wrong. I mean, that is the training grounds, right? It's like
Yes.
if you can do it there, you can do it anywhere. But it's so easy to get caught in the stories and constantly ask the not wrong questions, but the questions that aren't helpful of like, why is this happening to me? You know, why, like, whatever, the victim mentality.
Yeah.
And then you just find
Yeah.
more evidence for that and you just get stuck and it's so hard to see. And that's like so much of where I came from, like my mentality growing up. But it really, you start to ask different questions, your mind will look for different answers. And then that is the liberation.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, I feel like I could talk to you for like 2 hours. I fucking
I
knew
know.
this was gonna be the way I felt. I'm so happy. Amazing. Okay, a question that I love to ask at the end is like, we've touched on so many points and
Mhm.
there's been so much goodness here. I'm curious to hear if intuitively there's anything else that you feel called to share.
What's coming through for me is, you know, when we're first getting on this path, and I feel like I'm just getting started, but like fast forward or rewind to like 5 years ago when I really started it, I always looked for everyone else's input of like what practices I should do, what perspectives I should have, how I should do X, Y, Z. And I think if you can really let go of needing someone to tell you what's right for you, that will save you a lot of time, right? Of like, no one else knows better than you do. And that's still a practice for me. I mean, that is still me believing that I know the answers about myself more than someone else does, right? Because the reason why someone is telling you to do a certain practice or to look at life a certain way is because it worked for them. No shame in that. But what what is really like the most juicy thing is to find out your truth. And it can be scary because again, if you're scared of being wrong, I mean, that's the scariest place to be. But that's where the juice is. And I think leaning into that, once I started to do that, really changed everything for me. When I stopped like making my like morning practice like a to-do list. And even today I noticed it. Like even today I noticed myself trying to rush and I was like, what's going on? And it's just like the fear that I'm behind, and I think that again can show up in the beginning of your journey when you feel like you're behind everyone else's like awakenings. That's bullshit. I'm telling you right now, like no one's ahead of you. And yeah, I just felt that coming in because I don't know. I feel like when we listen to podcasts, and especially I did, like I wanted people to tell me what to do. And I really hated when people tell me to listen to myself. But now I know why. And don't get mad. It's true. Like you can be trusted. You can trust yourself. And this is coming from someone that like I think I won an award of like someone that did not trust themselves. Like seriously. So like if I can start to trust myself, literally anybody can. And it's still practice. I haven't figured it out yet, but way closer than I was.
I'm right there with you. I also did not trust myself at all. I outsourced every decision always. And, it's still a journey, but like that is true freedom because if you're always trying to get answers, like that never ends. Every time that you try something new, like you're just constantly outsourcing and you still are in this constant state of anxiety because God forbid that a decision comes up that you didn't prepare for, you don't know what to do for. Like you're still hyper vigilant and trying to control life because you don't actually trust your own decision making, your own intuition. And it just takes practice. Like you said, this whole thing is it's a practice and it gets to be fun. It doesn't have to be this like, oh my gosh, I have so much work to do. Like make it fun, like get to know yourself. But it like takes facing the parts of you that are so afraid to make a mistake and recognizing that the more you do, the more you're just like, oh, it was just a stumble. And like, even that came with wisdom. Beautiful. Well, I'm glad I asked. I just feel like there's always something that like comes through that is just divinely placed there. So
Love it.
I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful for you coming on. I'd love for you to share how people can connect with you. Also, like your Substack. I'll include these links in the show notes, but just tell us a little bit about where people can connect with you, what you've got going on.
Yes. Well, first off, Lily, you are such an amazing soul. Like your energy is so felt. Not gonna lie, I was a little nervous about this, but right when I started talking to you, like it did feel like I was talking to like an old time friend, like a friend that I've known forever. So thank you for making this space so amazing. Like you're such a good host. Like I'm taking notes for like bringing people on my podcast because you did freaking amazing.
Thank
And yeah, and it really felt like a conversation, not so much like, like a ask me this question, I answer. You know what I mean? It was very flowy, which you nailed it. It was amazing. And where people can find me. So on Instagram, it's hannah.may.snyder, M-A-E, not M-A-Y. And yeah, I am taking on clients. I'm going to start opening my doors probably in a month. But if you're interested, DM me. And my website is also Hannah May Snyder. But like Lily said, she'll put it in the show notes because it's spelled out a little differently. I also have a Substack. I mean, that's like my journal if you really want to get into the juiciness. Like I tell everything on there. And then I do have a podcast, which Lily will be on in a couple weeks. It's called the Fluidity Podcast. And yeah, that's about it.
Amazing. I am going to go check out your Substack for sure. And you're inspiring me too. I'm like, I've thought about that for a while. I'm like, maybe there's something
so
there.
Fun.
It sounds so
amazing.
Fun for like your own liberation, honestly,
100%,
for your own
like
creativity and outlet.
Yeah, there's something magical about writing something and like being so open to letting everyone see it. And again, even if no one looks at it, like it being there, like it kind of frees that story of like I don't want to be seen. And like the more that you do it, it's like, oh, nothing happened. Like I'm cool.
Yeah, I'm still here. I'm still alive. Like that's how we rewire things. It's not just like, oh, I know it's safe intellectually. No, it's like, okay, well now do the thing that you previously were too scared to do and prove to yourself that it's safe now, in your body. But it's practice, and we get to unlock new levels.
Yeah, you can go back to it. And what I'm really excited about is like, say like 2 years from now, I go back to like my first couple like Substacks. And like they're all there for you. So that's kind of a selfish reason why I do it too. You can like go back and like see where you're at. It has a date, it has everything. Like,
yeah, it's so cool to get a glimpse into like who you were. I mean, that's part of what I love with podcasting too. Is like I've been doing this for like 3 years, and I go back to some of my first episodes, and I'm like, whoa, like it's so cool because sometimes you forget how much you've actually grown, because you're in it and it's you're so close to the experience. So yeah, I love it. At the end of the day, like find a creative outlet, whatever that may be for you, and do it for yourself, especially at the beginning, but I hope always first, and see where that takes you. I feel like that's a big part of what came through today. And yeah, I'll include all the notes in the show notes. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Thank you, Hannah. You're such I just feel like you're such a soul sister. I'm excited to deepen our connection and support each other along this journey because we're not supposed to do this alone. So these conversations are also partially for people to feel less alone on their journey. So thank you so much. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Yeah, we'll see you guys next time.